Hello, guys and girls, and welcome to the first of its kind for season 2023. And it is my we'll try and do a round by round, analysis slash insight slash review of my own team across the course of the season. I figure now's a good time after price changes, price fluctuations. Everyone's team's very similar to start with, I find, and the rankings I think reflect that, which is what we've gone through in our recent round episode for round 3. But I figure now's a good time to sort of roll through my thinking strategy from week to week, and happy to tap into your thoughts as well. So in terms of my trade options and whatnot, feel free to list them down below in the comments. But here it is. This is obviously our channel here. Thank you once again for tuning into our content. We always are thankful for everyone tuning in from week to week, and fully appreciative of that. It does show that obviously the numbers as they go up or if they go down, alternatively, it does give us a bit of an insight into what sort of content you enjoy and whether or not you're enjoying our content. So if you are, also feel free to let us know, because we are happy to take on any feedback, good or bad. So feel free to do that. But whilst we're here, and I do apologise for badgering and always asking this, but we are trying to set ourselves a goal of hitting the 1K subscriber mark on YouTube. Our podcast is going great guns. That stepped it up a notch on last year and the season prior to that, which was, of course, our first season. But it's a little bit slow going on YouTube because we only started up in our second year, which was last year. So if you guys and girls out there could help us towards that, push us towards that 1K mark, we'd be really appreciative of that. All you need to do, of course, is go over to here, and instead of where it says customize channel for myself, because I am obviously one of the owners alongside Liam of this channel, that should say subscribe. So if you guys can click subscribe on that and follow us along on the journey, we are fully appreciative of that. So thank you so much. So with all the, the admin and everything else out of the way, let's jump into my team for round 4, ahead of round 4. So let's do it. So in terms of round 3, you would have obviously heard, if you've tuned into our round 3 review episode, where Liam and I went through our teams ever so briefly, you would have seen that I ended up scoring 2,195. So not too bad. I did say during that record that I thought during the round that this was sort of an above par score, and it was to an extent, and you'll see there with the jump in ranking reflects that to some extent. But I am still ranked 36,899th. So not really where I want to be, unfortunately. But like I was saying just before, I think it does reflect more so than anything that everyone's teams are so similar. Even comparative to years gone by. I think early rounds I've made jumps of start round 1 being around about 25,000, and then I jump up to 10,000 and really, more than half my score, rank, and found it quite easy to do. But this season I've gone, I think I started around about 70K or thereabouts, then went down to 45 to 50K, and now I started around about 46K or thereabouts, 47K, and now I'm down to 36,899th overall. So it is a little bit frustrating, because looking at my team, which I'll flick to right now without further ado, you'll see here that there aren't really any, aren't many, if any. Sounds like that song. I won't jump into the beat. But yeah, there's not that many glaring, issues that I've got at the moment. Obviously, Constable is one, not playing, but if anything, it's probably a bit more advantageous because it allows me to screen the score of Wilmot, who is playing the first game against the Pies. And if he doesn't score well enough, then I can put Lockie Cowan on, provided that Constable doesn't come in this week. So he may, Flanders, as we know, that stupid, sexy Flanders, or in this case, stupid and not so sexy. He sustained an knee injury and will be out for, I think, the next 6 weeks or thereabouts. So unfortunate for owners like myself, but I punted him 2 weeks ago off the back of round 1. That was enough. I saw enough there with his lack of role and the score that he's outputting. But that's sort of the issue at the moment. But I mean, everyone's got Constable, so it's a combined issue, and it's not a point of difference issue, I guess, in a sense. So I'm not too unhappy about that. But it's more so my primos, like Doherty, 87, hasn't been scoring well traditionally. compared to seasons prior. Ridley has been one that I started with, and he was actually Stewart in the preseason, and I switched him across to Ridley because I thought he was one that was going to take his game to the next level and start scoring like he was 2 seasons prior. Started well in round 1, round 2, he went to shit. Round 3, I think he was very fortunate scoring that 96 because he was playing St Kilda, who already we can see there's a bit of a trend there. They give up points to defenders like they did against Freo when the likes of Luke Ryan and Brennan Cox and the like absolutely went bananas. So I'm not reading too much into that score, and I think it is a little bit of a fool's gold type score there. So he is one guy that I am at this stage, unfortunately, looking to upgrade, just because I don't think he can sustain the scoring that he has, or at least he showed in round 1. Outside of, I guess, Constable and, Doherty, Laird, as we know, had a slow start to the season. He'll come good, and he has thus far. Bont, I'm not too worried about. He was absolutely shafted, I reckon, on the weekend in terms of the score that he was given by Champion Data. I know that he had bulk turnovers. His disposal efficiency was off, but he was hands down best on ground. If anyone watched that game, his influence was just immense. So I'm not too worried about Bont there. I brought Setterfield in just purely for the fact that he is someone that is going to be able to score between the 80 to 100 plus type score, which is good enough. And he's already made about 40k and will make again. I think he's made about 60k. What did he make? Yeah, 60k, just a touch under 60k, and he's going to make another 40 thereabouts this week. So I'll delve into what my plan is with him in a moment. I ended up keeping Hopper. It was a bit of a sliding doors moment on the weekend, you would have heard, because I was very close to potentially trading Hopper to LDU and not going for Dacos, but instead I went for Dacos, and it worked out well because obviously LDU was a laid out, and Dacos, he put in a good enough score, I think, and he's pretty much in 60% of teams in the competition, so no real surprise there that he is a keeper. So I did identify that. And yeah, outside of, I think the forward line is probably the one constant from week to week in my side. And they've been punching out reliably high scores like Dunks, Rosie definitely have, averaging over 100. Taranto as well. Gould had a little bit of a downer on the weekend, but I think he'll bounce back. And as long as he performs around about the 90 to 100 range, not too unhappy there. And he's a keeper. Zeeble and Sheasel, like the Shees dog, he is amazing. I don't know how to describe the bloke. Like, he's up there with Ashcroft, like in terms of, you'll see the odds as well. You would have heard that they're both almost equal favourites, the Rising Star and rightfully so. Zeeble, a little bit of down on the weekend, but I think there's enough there to suggest like he's got the same role that he had 2 seasons prior, where he absolutely smoked it, even with Hall on the team. So not too phased there, but really looking forward to both of these guys getting their defensive forward eligibility DPP, so I'll be able to swing them back and really shore up my defence, which at the moment is the most concerning of the lot. Happy to rely on the likes of Ashcroft, Jinby, McKenzie in the midfield as my rookies, because they are ultra reliable. And I've got enough in terms of rookies on the bench. I'm pretty happy with what I've got so far in terms of cash cows. I was able to loop on Baker's score for Hopper on the weekend, which a lot of people did. And then I ended up bringing in Chandler last week as well. He was a priority for me. I had to bring him in, and I think he's one of those rookies, and I think he's going to be the cash cow of the season. So I'll be very surprised just looking at his ownership if it's not right up there. Like 29%, he should be at least in 50% of teams. Like, his break-even was off the charts last week, and again, he scored well, 90-odd, and he's projected to make another, 66K thereabouts over the next couple of weeks. So he's going to be right for the picking. And that's just on the basis as well, like if he scores 53, which is half of, it's 30 points down on his average anyway that he's got at the moment. So, I mean, if that's the floor of what he can make, that's amazing. So super happy with that. So that's my team. That's where it's at the moment. And I think in terms of I was very, very close as well. For those of you who haven't tuned into our weekly round review episode that were released yesterday, Darcy was on the chopping block for me last week, and I'm glad that I kept hold of him. Liam and I, we went through the captaincy options and saw that Darcy historically scored well against West Coast, even without the fact that Nick Nat wasn't there as well, also boded well for him. Come up against, was it BJ Williams or whoever that ruckman is in inanimate carbon rod virtually, the poor bloke, because they're absolutely bleeding points to opposition ruckmen. So no real surprise there, but he still provides a little bit of a worry for me, Darcy. But I'm not going to get rid of him just yet. I think it'd be a waste of a trade if I was to do so. I think at the moment, I'd be happy to wait until Gawn comes back and then look to upgrade him. But yeah, apart from that, I'll just stick with him. Marshall, again, everyone's got him. That's the thing. He's in over half of the competition, 54% of teams. So when it obviously he has a downer like he did on the weekend, it hurts me along with half the competition as well. So it kind of like mitigates that risk, as Liam and I always mention. So he's not a pod that's going to hurt you outright. So not too worried about that. And I think he'll come good. It's surprising that he's not performing as well as expectations would have him, because St Kilda are actually killing it. So, and he's the sole ruckman. So it doesn't really make too much sense there, but it is what it is, really. Yeah, in terms of Primos, Doherty, as I said, has let me down. Dacos, pretty happy with him. Ridley, as I said, I'm going to try and upgrade him, potentially to Stewart, and I'll get into shortly how I'm thinking of doing that. Jones now, he should be making a little bit of cash. He's got a -9 break even because he's round one score of 5, where he sustained that neck injury. Will be out of his system, out of his rolling average, which is, of course, a 3-week rolling average. So that'll fall out of his system after this weekend. So hopefully he can score, what he has traditionally around about that 70 to 60 odd mark and really bump up his score. Because even if he scores 42, as you can see there with SuperCoach Plus, he's going to go up 22.9k. But then it means his break even is going to really jump up as well. So hopefully he can score similar to what he has in the past two rounds, and keep his break even quite low and make us a little bit more cash, because if I was to almost forced to trade him next week, only getting 30k out of him isn't ideal. So yeah, that's that. McKenna I'm going to stick with for as long as I can. And as I said, Constable probably is best if he actually doesn't come back for the Suns, so I can loop him in with, I guess the best scorer of these two guys, depending on if they play before the Suns, so I can screen their score and then bring them on. Midfield, just backtracking, I guess. Laird and Bont, happy with them, as I said. Tom Green, super happy with him. Setters, brought him in last week. Could potentially punt him next week, and I'll get into again shortly why and how I'm going to be doing that. Hopper, he's got a little bit of money to make, provided that he is fit. I was a little bit worried that he didn't face... It didn't come up fit on the weekend due to a knee injury, and I know those can be quite lingering without much, information as to what the actual issue was. But by all reports, he's going to return this weekend, so happy enough to keep him, and he's got a little bit of money to make there, as you can see there. If you can average, 85, 83 thereabouts over the next couple of weeks, he's going to go up 60, 70k. So even at that point there, it's not ideal, but if it does start to slow down, because his break-even, as you can see there, jumps. But all we need really is one big score over the next couple of weeks, and it will keep his break-even low, and he should make us more cash than that and push up potentially towards that 100k mark in profit. But that's pretty much my team as it stands at the moment. So let's delve into, without further ado, my plans for round 4. So I could, option 1, stick with my team as is. As I said, there's no real glaring issues outside of underperforming Doherty and Ridley and Marshall, who everyone's got. But I feel as though, as I said, like, people have very similar sides. And I know that's going to change over the course of the season as people trade from week to week. But I feel as though there's one glaring sort of omission in my team at the moment, or something that's missing. And it was that guy that I was going to go for on the weekend in the name of LDU. And I think it's a bit of a blessing in disguise he didn't play on the weekend, because it does mean, and I'll just bring him up now, and I'll bring up his, Luke Davies. So he's obviously averaging 149, which is off the charts, and he's already in 25% of teams. I think his ownership, look at his ownership, went from 10,899 to 44,260. So I really feel for those 34K odd owners, new owners that jumped on him last week, only for him to be a late out. But again, I feel as though he's the sort of guy that you need to jump on now, because at this price point, without him having changed as yet, not having played the 3 games for his price to change, that there is a gift. And you've got to jump on it however you can. And it just comes down to how you can really fit him in, I guess, and execute the trade. So looking at his fixture, I know there's some sort of conjecture over him potentially being tagged. Like, I know if he did face the Hawks on the weekend, if he played, he could have potentially copped a tag from McGuinness. But he didn't, obviously. But this weekend he faces my Mob and Carlton. We've got potentially 2 tagging options in the traditional Ed Curnow, who is playing, as well as Hewitt. Now with Hewitt, I don't think in his time at Carlton he's actually been that lockdown traditional tagger as such. He's been a little bit of a cooler, as you'd term them, as coaches have termed them, where they stick tight to their opponent at the stoppage, and then as soon as the ball is bounced, they spread from the stoppage and try and get their own ball and they switch from a defensive play in the midfield to an attacking play, depending on how, I guess, the ball lands, or if the opposition ruckman taps down, they stick tight to their opponent and become a bit more of a clamp down player. So he is one option, Hewitt, potentially sticking a close game on LDU, but a loose/tight game, if that makes sense. The second option is Ed Curnow, and I think the worry is that, yes, traditionally he is that traditional tagger, but I can't recall him actually tagging as such over the course of the first 3 rounds. Aside from all of that, considering Carlton undefeated and North, to their credit, have performed quite well, I think Vossi is going to back in the Carlton players to play man-on-man, and I would be very surprised if he starts a tag on LDU, despite the fact that, yes, he stands out like dog's balls, to put it bluntly, in him being the most valuable player in the engine room for North. But I feel as though that maybe in-game, if LDU is tearing it up, he might make a bit of a switch. If Carlton are behind, if North are on an absolute terror, he might make a bit of a switch to try and quell him. But I think, it says more about the team if you're willing to back them in against the opposition and play man-on-man and just beat them at their own game, as opposed to playing defensive. So I am not, I'm going to say fairly confident, but I am confident that LDU is going to start tagless and put in a nice performance. So also reminding as well that his break-even is 21, which may seem not so low, but if you put it in the context of what he's scored so far in 143 and 155, and provided I know he hasn't played really solid opposition, if he scores a 114, as you can see there, he's going to go up 41.9k. And again, if he scores 123 in round 5, he's going to go up, again, 21.9k. So he could be making potentially 60k or thereabouts, even potentially more depending on how he scores, because he could actually smash those projected scores there, meaning that his break-even also stays low over the next few weeks as well. But I'm fairly confident in saying this is the cheapest that you're going to get LDU all season. So if you are prepared to potentially maybe get him in down the track and be prepared to pay a little bit of extra money, meaning that you're going to have to almost use money that you're generating from, the cash cows that you're trading in, that's totally fine. But my strategy at the moment anyway is to bring in LDU and save a little bit of money down the track, because as you can see there, 557, 400, if he does go up to 621, that's, what's that, 50, 60, 64k or thereabouts roughly difference So that's almost potentially a trade-in of one cash cow. So in a way, you're reallocating funds to upgrades of other primos by going on LDU early. So that's sort of my main ploy at the moment, heading into round 4. So the main query, I think, is how am I going to execute this trade and how am I going to get him in? Because at the moment, I've only got 49.4k. I've been playing around with a few scenarios, and let me know as well as to what your thoughts are in terms of LDU first and foremost. Does he appeal to you as much as me? Because I just think he's an outright primo. I'm fairly confident on him finishing as a top 8 midfielder come the end of the season, if not a top 10 to 11 midfielder, which you want to finish with the best players obviously come the end of the season. So I see him as definitely one of those players. So getting back to how I'm going to trade in LDU. So I would have loved if I had a little bit more cash to just trade Ridley directly to LDU, which would have been Ginby to defense and then bring in LDU like that. But obviously can't do it because I fall short by 10.9k. So that's not on the table, unfortunately. So I have to be a little bit more creative. So there are a couple of options that I can pursue. The first is culling a cash cow early, and it would require a cash cow at the most expensive cash cow that I've got at the moment, if you want to put it that way, because I need as much cash as I can get. I'm not going to trade in Chandler because he's got so much cash to make still, but it'd be someone like a Philippou, for example. His break-even's 9. It is still quite low. He still has a little bit of money to make. He's going to projected to go up 19.5k on the weekend if he can score 52, and again 52, which is round about just under what he's averaging over the past couple of weeks as well. So it's not without the realms of possibility that he actually does score that over the next couple of weeks on average and caps out at an extra 30k and then starts to sort of teeter around that mark where his break-even doesn't shoot upwards where he's going to lose cash, but it's going to be slow going and he turns into a bit of a slow burn cash cow. So for me, he is one option to potentially trade out. So what it would involve is trading Philippou down to, if I was to go for a bit of a cash cow, for example, let's bring them up here. It'd be going for maybe a Phillips, which at this stage, I don't think I'd be able to afford him anyway because I need that extra cash to bring in LDU. So it's like, do I go for like the other guys as well? Again, Noah Long is too expensive. I think realistically it would mean going for a early cash cow that's not yet on the bubble in, you'll see here, if I swing Taranto into the midfield just for the moment, it would mean going early on. There he is, Jacob Van Rooyen. So 123.9. So I'm not a massive fan of bringing rookies in after 1 week, especially him being a key position player. He is prone, or those players in that, role are more prone to, more deviation in their scores. It's just a natural part of the game as opposed to being a midfielder where you constantly run the ball. However, as you would have seen on our round 3 review episode, in breaking down JVR, he actually has been around the ball as well. He hasn't just been up forward. He had 6 tackles and he had 3 hit-outs as well. I think he had around about 25% ruck attendances as well, giving him a bit of chop out for Grundy. So I don't mind that. And it does elevate his ceiling a little bit more because it obviously gives him more opportunity to score points from week to week. So if I was to go for anyone early, it would be with Jacob Van Rooyen. But yes, it would mean putting Taranto into the midfield and potentially subbing someone off field like a McKenzie. But that there would give me 133.2k. Now, Ridley is the prime candidate to get rid of, I think, at this stage in order to bring LDU in. Let's get rid of cash cows, even though you could probably classify LDU as a bit of a cash cow. But where are we? So LDU, there he is. And that would be that. That would be my first option, or one option anyway. And that's done and dusted. Now, the other option is potentially saving the cash cow. So first and foremost, before I go into my other option, it would obviously mean benching someone like a McKenzie, which I'm not much of a fan of. He is scoring quite well, McKenzie, and it means I'm going to have to field in the forward line someone like a Chandler, which I suppose isn't too bad. Chandler's been, as I said, scoring all right. But if I was to have preference between the two, I'd prefer to field McKenzie over Chandler. But yeah, that's pretty much one scenario. The other scenario, and the one player that I have got my eye on, which again, even though he's already changed in price, he's someone that I have identified as a mid-pricer that I think I've missed. And it's not a Warple. I started with Callahan and he's out of my sight, so it's not him. I brought in Setterfield. So the next best, who is scoring quite well and he has a really, really good role, is Will Day. So my other option is potentially doing a single trade of Doherty to Will Day, and then going Ridley, similar to what I've done there. Ridley switched with Jimby into defence, and then Ridley gets swapped for LDU. And that would save me having to cull Philippou early, which I'm not really much of a fan of. And at this stage, I think I could probably sit on my trades and ride out the storm at the moment as well. But I think first and foremost, LDU you have to get him in, and that's non-negotiable for me at the moment. I am keen to get him in. There's vision of him at training as well, where he's looking in good nick, looking in really good nick. So happy with that. So that's a non-negotiable. So there's that. That's the second option as well. So going for LDU and for Will Day at the expense of Doherty, or I could do the combination I've just done there and burn an extra trade through the use of a boost by switching Doherty to Will Day. And the only reason I would be doing this is it would afford me bulk cash. So it means that I've traded out Philippou for a bit of cash. I've traded out Doherty for Will Day to give me 166 roughly extra K on top of what I'm getting from the trade into Philippou with this cash. And it's fine. I don't mind it. I'll just complete that trade for now. But if you look at my team, it means, again, I'm going to have to bench McKenzie. So if McKenzie has a blinder, there's no way for me to get McKenzie score on field. Constable is stuck in defence, so I can't switch him into the midfield. With Jimby, because Jimby was in there initially, to loop in McKenzie's score. And I'm going to be forced to play Chandler ahead of, preferentially ahead of Green and Van Ruin. So I think... And there's no need to do Philippou out, I think, either. So I would say this third option is one that I wouldn't go for. So I'm going to undo that change. Let's just confirm and switch it all around. So I think I'm weighing up between two options here. And it is, as I said, going Philippou down to Van Ruin and going Ridley to LDU, not using a boost, or alternatively, and this is a bit of a risk. It's a bit of a risk because it means I am trading out someone that I think is still a keeper, still in keeper status in Doherty. As we know, Doc's got a break even of 166. He could potentially go down 32.9k. He does face North on the weekend, who he has scored 124, 66, and 91 points against over the past 3 weeks. And his average is thereabouts. It's not low and it's not super high against North historically in his 7 games that he's played against them. So if he scores 93, he's going to go down 32.9k, which will keep his break even still relatively high at 127. And then if he scores again sub 100, he's going to go down another 15.3k. So he could realistically lose 47K over the next couple of weeks. And then again, I think SuperCoach Plus have him there falling a little bit lower than what he should, but it's not without the realms of possibility that he actually does go sub 100 over the next few weeks, over the next month, and drops to around about that 500K mark. But I'm not too worried about Doc losing money so much at this stage. But however, having said that, it does give a little bit of impetus and reason as to maybe using him as a bit of a scapegoat in this sense, because it will give me a little bit of extra money. And then if Doc does turn it on and, reclaims the status of, being a keeper that we all thought he was going to be during the preseason, then I think, I'm happy enough to, I guess, bite the bullet and use a trade to bring him back in. So there is that. So it would require, obviously, Ridley down to Day. And then I'll just show you what it looks like. Trading up Ridley, switching in Ginby to defense, and then bringing in LDU. And then that would give me, as you can see there, 154.8K in the kit. Complete the trade. It does leave me a little bit shallow in defense, which I'm not a massive fan of. Dacos virtually is the only primo/keeper that I've got on my side at the moment. If I was to do this, Will Day, funnily enough, becomes my my D2, and then Ginby, who's pretty much performing like a keeper at the moment, but he's obviously a rookie. Then we got Liam Jones, McKenna, and then Constable switching between Wilmot and Cowan as that loophole option. It does fill out my midfield quite well, which I do really enjoy and I love the look of. Really got high-performing rookies here. I've got the cash cows on the bench. I've still got Philippou making a little bit of cash, because the one thing with Philippou as well, he could come out and absolutely smash it, because he hasn't had a breakout game as such yet. Like, he scored 76 in round 1, which was nice to see. He wasn't reliant upon goals. 16 disposals. Then he kicked the 3 goals in round 2, which really salvaged his score more than anything. But you would have seen in our round 3 recap review episode that he's starting to get a bit of midfield time as well. I think he had about 20% CBAs or thereabouts from memory. So it does elevate his scoring ceiling a little bit more. So I'd really love to stick around and have him in my team just in case that does happen. But yeah, it does leave my defense even more shallow than what it was. But the plan longer term, and this is something that Liam and I always go on about, is try and plan your trades, not just with the next week in mind, but the week beyond that as well. So what it would mean is I've got 154.8K in the bank, and this is where Setterfield comes into it that I was referring to much earlier in this chat. So Setterfield is projected to make 44.5K if he scores 102. His break-even's 4. He's obviously made 58.1K thus far. If he was to score that on the weekend of 102, he'd go up 44.5K, which would mean that he would go up 102.6K or thereabouts, quick maths. And then he could still make potentially some more dosh over the coming weeks if he was to make that projected score. But for me, I think that's a great chance for me to punt him. Because if he goes up, just jumping back into him again, if he goes up to 450.8K, if he goes up 44.5K on the weekend, that would mean 450K plus the 150 means that he goes up to, I'll pretty much be able to trade him to anyone in the 600K range, which would mean I'd be able to get in, if I switch Ginby back into the middle, the bloke by the name of Tom Stewart, the miraculous man who's risen from the ashes and the second coming, turns water into wine and smashes out 167 on one knee virtually. He is looking like he's going to go down in, his break-even was 180 odd or something on the weekend and he scored 167. So realistically, he could reach that break-even of 161, but he averages 90.8 against the Hawks in 8 games that he's played against them, and I can see him dropping in price. Probably not to, I'd love it if he drops about 26.4K, But even if he doesn't, even if he makes his break even of 161, I can still afford him at 604. So I would love to bring him in. And that's kind of me planning for the subsequent week. Would mean that, just discount this. This is what my team would look like going into round 5. So I have Dacos. Stewart would be D1. Dacos would be D2. Will Day D3. And then I've obviously got LDU. And if Stewart goes down as well, like if he drops in price to about 570 odd, it means that I'll have around about 30 to 40k as well in the bank for subsequent upgrades as well. And then probably at that stage, I'd be looking to cull a Philippou as well. Fergus Green potentially next week, depending on how they score and what their break-evens are. And obviously JVR, Van Ruin, and Brockman, I think his name is, from the Hawks as well, is another guy on the bubble for next week. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment, and what I'm planning to do. It's not ideal, as I said, to get rid of Doc. I still want to stick fat with him, and you would have heard Liam and I say week after week, especially early on, stick with your primos unless they've got a change in role, which is what happened with McRae, with him and his team. And I think with Doherty, it's not so much a change in role. It's the fact that I think he's now having to share that split role almost with Adam Saad. But as we saw on the weekend, he racked up, was it 39 disposals or something? And due to the Giants' defensive press, it meant that he was under pressure. He wasn't able to use his silky, smooth kicking and have a really high disposal efficiency, or reasonable disposal efficiency that he has from week to week, which keeps his scoring floor quite high. So I think there's merit in keeping Doherty, and I still may do so. I may not even go down this path, but this is kind of where I'm at, what I'm thinking of longer term in order to try and bring Stewart in. So it virtually means in the long run, across the 2 weeks, it'd be Setterfield for LDU, and it'd be Ridley for Will Day and Doherty for Stewart. So thinking about it in terms of that, probably breaking even there between Will Day and Ridley. I think Doherty upwards to Stewart is a little bit of a slight upgrade, and Setterfield to LDU is an upgrade. So that's kind of my thinking. They may look sideways at present, but I think projecting longer term, I think it'll work out well for my team. And I just think as well that it's probably a good chance, as I've said, to differentiate yourself from the rest of the competition and take some risks. Will Day I really like as well, 402.6. Use him as a little bit of a ride the cash wave to an extent, but he's having a good role in the Hawks lineup. He scored 98, 139, and he's projected to go up, almost 70k if he can hit 86 and 93 over the next couple of weeks. And even then, his break-even still could stay low if he can hit those heights, but those heights as well are lower than what he's actually scored over the past couple of weeks. Round 1, he didn't really have too many CBAs. I'll just bring up as well DFS Australia just quickly before we wrap up this video. If you haven't used this website before, honestly, do yourselves a favor, because it's got everything it needs stats-wise. And if you're a stats nerd like myself, you'll end up falling down the rabbit hole of this website, but really awesome. It's got kick-in percentage, it's got ruck contest percentage, CBAs, all that sort of stuff. So CBAs is what we're going to look at the moment for Hawthorn. And you'll see here over the first 3 weeks, so as I said, Will Day didn't have too many CBAs, he had 26%, and then that bumped up to 63 and 65 across the weekend. And you'll see there's a correlation there. Uptick of CBAs also meant the uptick in scoring for Will Day, 98 and 139. So the fact is as well, I think it can stay relatively stable. There's no one that's really gone out of the side structurally for the Hawks. I think it's more so a case that Sam Mitchell sees Will Day as being groomed for that role. There's been talk of it through the preseason that he is going to become a permanent fixture in the midfield, and we can see that early days as well. So he's probably stealing, we could just say, probably CBAs off McKenzie, because he dropped down as Will Day jumped up. Warple's dropped down, obviously, as well. So that's danger signs as well for Warple, for owners of him. But I think, as we've discussed, Liam and I, over the course of the preseason and the early rounds of 2023, Sam Mitchell is going to take a youth-based approach. So if anything, I think Mackenzie's going to stick around probably around about this mark here, between 52 and 25. And it's really strange that Connor Nash actually got 74%. But yeah, interesting. But I think he's going to be playing around the midfield and try and work out what the best combination is for Hawthorn. But across both of those, I think he's probably got the combined most CBOs over the past couple of weeks as well, going by those numbers, or virtually on par with Newcomb. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at the moment. If I stick with this is where I'm at. This is what it's going to look like. If I don't, alternatively, my other option is to stick fat, stay with it, and see how we go. But that's it. That's virtually my side as it stands at the moment. I'll undo changes and decide as to which path I trek down. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know how your team's going as well. If you've got any comments, any questions as well with regards to your own team, feel free to pop them down below. Trade conundrums, all that sort of stuff. Always happy to help. But this is, of course, as I said, the first of the round-by-round reviews, and I guess delving in the rabbit hole of my own team from week to week, just to give you guys a little bit of a further insight outside of our normal transmission of round-by-round review weekly episodes that Liam and I do. And before wrapping up, obviously, if you can hit subscribe as well, help us along our journey. Let us know how we're going as well. If you have any collaborations in mind as well, we're starting to kick those off for season 2023. So if you have any in mind, whether it be teaming up with Abs Magic, which we're trying to do as well down the track as well as we did late last year. Anyone else, we're trying to hook up some stuff with Shorty's SuperCoach as well as the Centre Bounce crew as well. So let us know your thoughts, questions, comments. If you can subscribe, that's awesome. But until next time, we'll see you again. As we say, same time, same place. See you next time. Cheers.